Horror films oftentimes have common tropes, and right now we're going to take a deeper look into one of the best ways that filmmakers develop a sense of fear for their audience by means of the tension and release factor. So the film Get Out, directed by Jordan Peele, has one of the most interesting and creative images to show this horror trope, and it happens to be a deer. So Peele uses the deer as the center point of Chris's fear, which is directly correlated to his vulnerability because of the tragedy of his mother's death. We'll start by talking about the hit-and-run motif and how Jordan Peele uses this as the center of Chris's fear. Later on in the film, we see how Rose's mother uses his vulnerability to her advantage when putting him under hypnosis, as she is aware of the tragedy of his mother's death due to a hit-and-run. This is precisely why, at the end of the accident, Chris is visibly terrified while he stares at the deer when it is killed by a hit-and-run. This omen, not only as a reminder that we are watching a horror film, is also greatly representative of Chris's deepest fear that he felt as a child when he was unable to save his mother. This hit-and-run motif appears again toward the end of the film, a little bit more obviously this time, when Chris is escaping the Armitage house and hits Georgina with his car. And there's a silence in dialogue, and we see Chris debating with himself whether or not to go out of the car to save Georgina. And we cut to a flashback, again, of Chris sitting in that room and not being able to go out and save his mother. And this is kind of his opportunity for redemption. Again, this motif is supporting the horror trope, and the reason why is because you as the viewer know well enough that he will be putting himself in danger if he decides to go save Georgina. It's a classic method that filmmakers use in order to have the audience engaged with the sense of fear for the characters that they see on the screen. Next, we'll talk about the symbolic meaning of the deer representing innocence. As we already talked about before, when Chris and Rose are heading to Rose's parents' house, they strike an unaware deer along the way. This deer, in the purest sense, was one with nature and embodies what is all good with the world. This same logic can be applied to Chris as well. Chris looks and acts like a good Samaritan. He cares for his friends and minds his own. But like the deer got struck down, with them keeping to themselves, they're vulnerable to the evil of the world. They're living in their salad days without knowing what Rose will do to them. This was before they knew the true danger ahead of them and only knew what was in their bubble. Rose made her mark on the deer with a car, and made her mark on Chris by inviting him to go to her parents' house. When Chris wakes and tries to escape the Armitage household, the deer head is above Chris, reminding him of how vulnerable he was, and that's why he got into the situation. As a part of what the viewers want out of their revenge story, Chris grabs the head of the deer hanging on the wall and uses the antlers to kill Rose's dad. This could be seen as Chris losing his last bit of innocence in him and being on the offensive while shedding the bubble he once was in. Instead of being the rabbit hunted by the snake, Chris switched the power roles and is no longer in a vulnerable state and able to finish what Rose's family started. Similar to comedy, which Jordan Peele is much more well known for, horror films use the same aspect of tension and release, and Peele decided to, in this movie, use it through a very interesting medium of the deer. Jordan Peele is quoted in saying, "The best comedy and horror feel like they take place in reality. You have a rule that you are bending or heightening, but the world around it is real."